Hello and welcome back to Cow Daily, your weekly look at a parade of flickering nightmares like a child's flick book in hell. You remember the Norwegian black metal people who burnt down churches? It's basically them that made the book. Welcome back, though. Do us a favour as well. If you could go in the comments, just let me know that you're here in the Time Honored Tradition. But also, when the video uploads to YouTube, if afterwards you could go and leave a comment and likes and all that good stuff, that would be really cool. Just a point on this week, there's a hell of a lot of narrative going around and a hell of a lot of projection on people who are calling for peace. And we're covering the whole gamut of this. We're covering the things that maybe other people won't cover or maybe are scared to cover. And that doesn't come without some risk, which is a weird thing to say in these times. And I just want to put that into the mix. If you're not willing to open your mind and look at the variety of information that's out there, and as you know, we source everything. We do everything that we possibly can to make things as accurate as possible. But please do hold us accountable in the comments if you feel that it's not right. And it's an open forum. We're always going to get your questions or your statements up on the screen, and we'll deal with it as we go along. I'll stand by everything that we've done today. Everything. I feel it's needed. I feel like this kind of narrative, which is the truth, in my opinion, is needed. This isn't as simple as just goodies and baddies. Life is not that simple, particularly when you're dealing with like the global establishment. And that's where the risk comes in. Anyway, without any further ado, I shall bring in my good friend and sidekick, the Venerable Alice Wolf. How are you doing? Could you hear any of that, by the way? I don't know how StreamYard works.
Yeah, I could hear that at all.
Happy days.
I'm doing all right as somebody who feels like they're at the first scene of a remake of Threads can be. I think like everybody that, a bit shocked, a bit terrified about all the things we've seen unfolding over the last few weeks. And that's what we're here to talk about, I guess.
Well, it is. And I mean, look, I don't think anybody would be a human being if there wasn't a level of fear right now. We've went from pandemic, crossed over to the cost of living crisis, crossed over into war, wall-to-wall war everywhere. And there's something I'd just like to point out, and we'll be touching on it as we go along. Yemen has been going on and not getting that wall-to-wall coverage. Other conflicts continue to go on a lot around the world, which impact people in countries equally as much as Ukraine. And shouts to the Ukrainian people. I think what's happening there is a fucking disgrace, an absolute disgrace. And we'll probably swear a lot more this week than normal.
Yeah, I'd already decided that in my head. There's going to be a lot more swearing this week.
It's an open season. It's an open season. So, yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. We've turned up, we're doing it, and we've put the work in, and we hope you like what we've got to offer. So, first thing we want to do is, I put together something earlier today, and it's a montage of how a lot of the media are treating this, and the racism is unbelievable. So I'm going to play that, and then we'll come back and we'll have a wee chat about it all.
Unthinkable has happened to them. And this is not a developing third world nation. This is your...
Sorry, it's very emotional for me because I see European people with blue eyes and blonde hair being killed, children being killed every day with Putin's missiles and his helicopters and his rockets.
And so, of course, I understand and respect the emotion. What you are outlining there is this tension between longer-term efforts to apply pressure to Vladimir Putin, such as financial sanctions, and the very immediate military
place, with all due respect, like Iraq or Afghanistan that has seen conflict raging for decades. This is a relatively civilized, relatively European, I have to choose those words carefully too, city where you wouldn't expect that or hope that it's going to happen. So it's partly human nature, but they are not in denial.
You were playing in the latest pictures of some of the refugees trying to get on trains or trying to get out of Ukraine. And what's compelling is just looking at them, the way they're dressed. These are prosperous, I'm loath to use the expression, these are prosperous middle-class people. These are not obviously refugees trying to get away from areas in the Middle East that are still in a big state of war. These are not people trying to get away from areas in North Africa. They look like any European family that you would live next door to.
People were coming into Poland in just the last 24 hours. When you look at what happened in the last refugee crisis in Europe back in 2015, Poland was one of the EU countries that, was hesitant to take in refugees. Talk about what has changed and the different position now.
Yeah, well, just to put it bluntly, these are not refugees from Syria. These are refugees from neighboring Ukraine. I mean, that, quite frankly, is part of it. These are Christians, they're white, they're very similar to people who live in Poland.
Sorry, you just caught us having a vape there. You're lucky I'm not smoking crack the way we're feeling at the minute. I'm going to get back on the tabs. Bit of Lambert and Butler action there.
Yeah, I definitely wish I still smoked this particular moment in time.
Welcome to Cow Daily this week with Benson and Hedges. So, Alice, my friend, what do you think of that?
It's something we've kind of always been aware of. I've got family. Some of my family originate from Somalia. They were also subject to an airstrike last week as well, and we're kind of used to that not being reported. What I'm surprised at from the media clips there is just how the media haven't even hidden it. It's just, they're just saying the quiet parts out loud now. About the people who were trying to escape. And I just find that idea, I really find the idea interesting of, oh, well, they're just like us. They are. They absolutely are. But so are the people of Yemen. So are the people of Somalia. So are the people, of Iraq and Iran. I've never understood the mindset of, oh yeah, these people are like us, but they're not. Because, we should realize by now in 2022, we've got more in common with every ordinary working class person all over the world than we do with the leaders who take us to war.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Fully right. I mean, that's what a lot of this is about for us. I think it's we're pro-peace and we're anti-war, and those are my principles, and I know you share them, and I will not deviate from those principles, particularly when a question of truth is at stake. And I think personally, the way the media are reporting this is without balls. It's cowardly. It's also fully racist. You've seen there's people being saying racist things and they're not being held accountable straight away. Now, there was one clip there, Roz Atkins, who's actually kind of good. He used to be a drum and bass DJ back in the day, actually. And not that means somebody's a good person, but it would imply that they've got a bit about them. And he has actually played at a recent drum and bass event where he's asked and he went and did it. But I digress. He didn't hold him accountable, but he did go to Twitter and he did say that he didn't catch it in the moment. And let's give people the benefit of the doubt too, because they're all up a height as well, but they're in it constantly in these newsrooms too. So I don't want to say that it's just like this full-blown narrative of where they're not being held accountable. That's not the case. Some people within the mainstream media are good people. Some of the things Roz Atkins does, where he does these montages and holds the government to account, are brilliant. I want to make that balanced and understood. But there's a pattern, as we see, across like it was NBC, CBS, BBC, even Al Jazeera. One of the clips was from,
Right. Okay.
And I wanted to show a range of global media in the way that type of stuff is being reported. It's not good. It's something that we've said many times. The media needs to be reporting the broad gamut of everything that's actually occurring. And it's also, for me, about why aren't you reporting these other conflicts in the same way?
Yeah.
What I'd like to do is bring some slides up and just have a look at a wider view. So, on the racism front, right? And I get it. I want Ukraine to see them off too. But I've followed what's been going on for a long, long time. This isn't new to me, the Ukraine stuff. This, what you're seeing there, the Azov fighters are an unreconstructed neo-Nazi militia, right? The Twitter account that you're seeing there is, excuse me, I'll just go on to one more slide so I get it absolutely right. It's the National Guard of Ukraine. And what this is they did was post a video of the Azov fighters, and it might even still be on that Twitter account, of them like getting a bullet and rubbing it in pork lard. And what they're talking about is Kadyrov's orcs. Kadyrov is the dictator of Chechnya, right?
Mm-hmm.
An absolute tyrant, horrible person. You know, the person that we're talking about, the people like kidnapping LGBT people in Chechnya. It's a horrible environment for people there. Would be remiss not to be pointing this out. It's on, as you can see, a verified Twitter account of the Ukrainian government. And that, other than on Twitter, I'm not seeing this anywhere else. So we'll just move on a little bit. Also from the Kiev Post, which is an independent media outlet over there. I'm just going to read this out for the audio listeners, and I'll give you a bit of clarity. When asked about Bandera, Zelensky, who's the president, prime minister, whatever he's called there, said he believes Bandera is a hero for some Ukrainians. Now, Bandera was a partisan in World War II. He fought alongside the Nazis. What Zelensky goes on to say, he is one of the people who defended Ukraine's freedom. Zelensky said in a 2019 interview with Ukrainska Pravda, which is also another, and I might point out, regulated by an independent media organization, umbrella organization in the Ukraine. He is a hero for a certain percentage of Ukrainians, and it's normal and it's cool. And that's Zelensky's absolute quote there. So, like, we'll just move on a little bit, and I'll bring you in after these ones. This is from Haaretz, which is a valid source in Israel, an Israeli newspaper. And for people in audio, we've got a member of the Azov battalion. They've got like some really questionable rune-looking Nazi like flag behind them. And it says in the caption, an Azov militiaman with a Tavor rifle, which is Israeli rifle. The headline says, rights groups demand Israel stop arming neo-Nazis in Ukraine. Human rights activists petition the court to cease Israeli arms exports to Ukraine, since some of these weapons reach neo-Nazi elements in Ukraine's security forces, like the Azov battalion. Now, I'll just, before I bring you in, I interviewed Jake Hanrahan from Popular Front, a brilliant independent journalist, not so long ago, and this will be coming out very soon, and we'll talk a little bit about this kind of thing. This was long when Jake and I spoke. It was like when I was ill, and it hasn't come out yet. But that's by the by. My point is, we were talking about this long before the war in Ukraine, as it stands now, was in the mass consciousness. In reality, it's been going on in Donbass since 2014. So, Alice, what are your thoughts on that right there?
Well, I think like yourself, I've known about the Azov battalion for a while. It's kind of from understanding about a lot of far-right groups existing in America. A lot of them are kind of encouraged to go over there and join them, with the idea of giving them some real-life experience of combat. So kind of known they've been about for a long time. And I think that they're often kind of quote when you talk about, we might go into this a bit more about the coup in 2014, which is like a big part of this story as well. And yeah, they do that. They do blatantly use these symbols, and there's more than one of them, and it is a real problem. I think what Putin then does is then kind of says, oh well, the idea of his line of, oh, this is about the denazification of, no, he's not. That's not his goal. He talks about the Maidan revolution and what happened in the square, you know, he kind of attributes that to being like a far right movement. It wasn't. There was a lot of different groups involved, a lot of different types of activists involved in that on the left and right. Some were just ordinary Ukrainians who weren't activists. You know, it was just Yanukovych. I can't say his name. Yanukovych at the time was hated by just about everybody at that point. And they were absolutely brutalized by, you know, by the police, who were using stun grenades with screw nuts on them so that they splintered off and went into people's eyes and everything. And I think, you know, there's just, I think this is kind of what I'm finding about this, is kind of unpicking people's like understanding of what's going on. I think the biggest thing I've seen that I've probably found the most shocking in all of this actually is a lot of people saying that Putin is a communist, and that this is like, and it's like, you know, if it was just one or two, I would have let it go. But it's like, you know, Russia hasn't been a communist country since the Scorpions were in the charts singing about it. And if you don't know who the Scorpions are, that tells you something about how long ago it was. The man, you know, Russia.
Winds of Change is an old school banger, to be fair.
Yeah. And now it's been stuck. It's going to be stuck in my head for 2 days, I think. But yeah, it's not a Soviet country. The Soviet Union does not exist anymore, and Putin certainly is not part of it at all. Yeah, it's just, I think I've seen some really kind of strange slants coming out of social media in the last few days.
People are scared, man. People are fucking scared, and I understand. So are we. Yeah. Like, we've all seen threads when the cold wind blows and all of this other stuff. Like, look, I'm going to be 45 soon. I've lived through part of the Cold War. It was part of my childhood, you know. I get what this is. I get how scary it is for you all. We're in this too, but at the same time, we've got to cover the whole gamut of this, because I ain't seeing it anywhere else. And whether we weren't, would still do it. So I'm going to take some comments from you and just see where things are at. So let's see. So we've got Dave Slaz in. Evening all, just made it back in time. Need sunset pics. Slaz provides some, and by the way, we are doing positive news later, so stick around. We're going to do some palate cleansing business, and I think we need it now more than ever. So we will be doing that. Darren Clark is saying the Kenyan UN representative words were telling. I don't actually have that video because we just couldn't have it make the cut. Seriously, the amount of material that's out at the minute. But if you haven't seen that, I suggest you go and find it. Have you seen that one, Alice?
No, I think that's probably one of the few I haven't seen, actually.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's talking. I mean, the general gist is he's talking about like sort of wider historical colonialism and
right.
whatnot.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think we should pepper this like in between. I think Putin's dickhead. You know, we're covering the whole gamut. We'll be coming on to him later. I think we've done this before too, though. We've talked about Putin, and it should go without saying. Putin is a dickhead, but we're a UK-based podcast, so we're going to talk about the UK side of things as well. And I posted something the other day, which was about, like, you know, I paraphrase, but it's that meme about, like, you know, people who call for peace are the real heroes in war. And I also captioned that with, is it still all right to say this now? You know, because I've seen the way that people have been treated. And I've seen the way that people who've been calling for peace have been treated, not just by the right, but by the centre, liberals, this kind of liberal bone-on / wide-on for Zelensky, which is fine. But what I want to point out is, in war, all sides do propaganda. If you want to go on Reddit, if our Russia is still there, it's riddled with it. If you want to go on Reddit, our Ukraine is riddled with it, because they're more scared than anybody. So, and also it's industrial scale propaganda, because that's war. And if you think for 1 minute that other countries within NATO and outside of that aren't also putting a narrative and a slant on it, you're out of your bloody mind.
Yeah.
So
No, absolutely. And I think it's, kind of you're talking about the thirst on for Zelensky and everything like that. And I think I sent you like a couple of things,
Oh man, I wish I had
regarding
time
that. And
for it. Yeah.
it's absolutely gobsmacking. It, to an extent, with some of it, some of the things you see, I do actually completely get it. I think when you've seen like the ordinary Ukrainian people who are kind of, the bravery to me looks like all kinds of different things. Sometimes it is picking up the kids and running in the opposite direction. Sometimes that's what you have to do. But some of them are going, actually, no, you know what, I'm going to stay and I'm going to fight. And, a lot of them don't have a lot of weapons. You've seen them making like Molotov cocktails, to kind of try and arm themselves against tanks and spreading information on how to kind of the best way of disabling tanks. And you can't help but kind of egg that on a bit because you're like, I really, really want them to be okay.
Totally.
And,
Totally.
the whole thing with the brewery who printed the labels for the beer for people to make Molotov cocktails with, which were basically like a spoof drawing of Putin, which basically said Putin is a dickhead on it. Like kind of all about that life. And but I think kind of what some people in the West are doing, it kind of like leads to like the memification of war. And they think that that's, kind of the memes that they're making with, having Zelensky in the Marvel comics and everything is the same thing as what the Ukrainian people are doing when they're writing mad messages and, giving him the middle finger. It's not the same thing. That is what the Ukrainian people are doing. That's a very definition of gallows humor. And they're
Indeed.
completely entitled to it. They're the ones on the fucking gallows. And they're doing what they can. And, for some of them, that involves staying and fighting. And for some of them, that means fleeing. But it leaves a bad taste in my mouth when I see people in the West kind of like treating it all like it's a new Netflix, a new Netflix series when you've got people desperately, trying to get out of the way, people trying to get in touch with their relatives who are there, from all over the world and not knowing what's going to happen to them. It leaves a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, really. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, fully agreed. Want to really take from the community a lot tonight because we've all got to carry this weight together, and there's some really great comments coming in.
All right. Okay.
So Alan Lewis is saying, I felt safer back in the mid-80s as a member of the UK Armed Forces than I do now. Tell us more, Alan. We really want to hear that viewpoint, my friend. Got Fiona Goldie here. Nice to see some new people on as well. Fiona Goldie, the Liberal left seem to be the biggest clarions for war. Well, I've got an example of that as we move forward. It's crazy to see. They seem to have a right bone on for it, but one of them's even fundraising for armament, and we'll show you what that is in a bit. Also, Michael Sheldon, Starmer's got a full-on war hard-on. His statement about expelling people from Labour for speaking against NATO is completely nuts and makes no sense. Nice one, man. Yeah. Right, we'll keep your comments flying in, chaps. We're going to come back to them. Just going to do a little bit of the housekeeping. Please subscribe to the Cow Daily YouTube channel. If you're actually on Facebook, if you could go over there and watch, we're there. If anybody's on Facebook and they've got the link to the channel, and also for this live stream, if you could drop it in the comments on Facebook, that would be great. Also, if you could share the stream. Nice to see a lot of new people and a lot more people tuning in this week as well. I guess war does that. And also, if you want to support journalism, and we are in the process of becoming regulated by Impress. We're members of the Independent Media Association. Please do go to patreon.com/Cow Daily. That's patreon.com Cow Daily. Basically, MTC's private chat forum has got me through this week, to be quite honest. So love every single one who's in there, as I love the wider community too. But there's a special thing happening there, and it's a really important thing as well because we can talk freely, because it's a closed private thing, and I would have to worry about that whole sort of open forum, Facebook and wider thing that's going on. It's heavy going. So on to the next. I'm going to play you a little video, and it's Liz Truss.
For people from abroad to join an international force. Would you support that?
I do support that, and of course that is something that people can make their own decisions about. But they are fighting. The people of Ukraine are fighting for freedom and democracy, not just for Ukraine, but for the whole of Europe, because that is what President Putin is challenging. And absolutely, if people want to support that struggle, I would support them in doing that.
So you support Britain, people from Britain going over to Ukraine to help in the fight?
Absolutely, if that's what they want to do.
President.
So let me take this one. I'll bring you in a minute. Liz Truss, it led to this. Breaking news on The Independent. Putin issued nuclear order in response to Liz Truss comments, Kremlin says. Does she even know what she's doing? It seems like this blunderbuss approach from the politicians. And we know they're out of their depth, the government, but never before has this been seen. I mean, even I've got a lot of time for Zelensky, but again, war propaganda, think about framing and think about how things are being framed. He's also a really accomplished actor, I'll just like to point out. So he's very good at doing the to-camera stuff. And he actually played, before he was the president, he actually played a version of him being president. And I've seen a clip where he takes a call from fake Angela Merkel, who talking about joining the EU. And they've actually signed a document live on camera, which is life imitating art, and whatever, of them applying to join the EU. And I think there's a fast-track vote going on today. So also, Ukraine conflict. Liz Truss backs people from UK who want to fight. There's a guy called Nick Matthew who says, one of my best friends died after the last 2 years of his life were dominated by the UK state, persecuting him for fighting against ISIS. And now this. Alice, what are you thinking?
Well, that was one of the things I was going to mention. It's all very well saying that she supports people doing that, but are those people then going to have their passports confiscated or their citizenship revoked, or are they going to be absolutely hounded by the authorities when they come back, as people did, when they returned from fighting in the Spanish Civil War, as they did when they've, more recently, when we're seeing people who fought with the YPG and the YPJ over in Syria kind of coming back? Were they not
give a little
doing the
bit
same?
of background what those two groups are, where do they stand politically, etc.?
Okay, so they are based in Syria. They have so they're who they're fighting against is basically ISIS, to wrap it up. And it's always really interesting that there's quite a heavy sort of now Rojava, the region kind of where they're setting up a community, it's often described as like an anarchist project there, which is kind of true. I don't think it's maybe entirely accurate to kind of say that, but certainly a lot of the people who have fought in it have got very leftist, very anarchist ideals. They've been linked with the PKK in Turkey as well, which is why Erdogan absolutely hates them. So it's and it was actually, I think it was the YPG, because you got the YPG and the YPJ, and the YPG are the male fighters, the YPJ are the female fighters there. I think it was the YPG who were the ones who were said to have captured Jihadi John, who was he was like a British. Was he British or was he?
I think so. Was he the guy no, I don't think he was the shoe bomber. That was Richard Reed or Wright. He was
anyway.
but I don't think it matters. It's like
he was somebody who went and joined. I can never remember whether he was UK or Canadian. Actually, I know they're two very different countries, but there was quite a few around about the same time who went out there and converted and ended up joining ISIS, and he killed a lot of people. And I think it was the YPG who eventually caught him and did that. So and it's really strange when you see kind of people who have fought there who are obviously very leftist, you know, sometimes outrightly anarchist ideals, you know, who've gone out there and they've been fighting against ISIS, and the Daily Mail reports on them, and they always like manage to leave that bit out. And you see the comments about going on about how they're heroes and, you know, how they, and like, yeah, they are actually, but like, you know, you're usually calling them Antifa scum from, you know, from what I understand. It's but you know, they are kind of trying to protect themselves, you know, trying to kind of defend women and children and set up something better than what they've got. And they get, you know, they do get attacked from all sides. You know, so they've and it's been a wide mix of people. There's been like former British military who've gone and signed up as well, and done that because, you know, obviously what ISIS have kind of been doing is horrific, and a lot of different people want to try and fight that. But when they come home, you know, they're obviously, because of who they're fighting, a lot of people think they're going to be treated like heroes, and, you know, but they're treated as a threat, you know, by the authorities. And it was the same during the Spanish Civil War as well. You know, it was, people did organize, you know, to go and help people fight against fascism, fight against Franco, when, you know, when their own governments weren't doing that.
Indeed. And I mean, there's something like here around the hypocrisy of it all, the hypocrisy of Liz Truss, because she would be the first one with a hand up, or else being puppeted to like obviously treat the people who went to fight ISIS, maybe because they're from a leftist like standpoint, in a very different way when they return.
I'm surprised Liz Truss hasn't had us killed already. Like, I mean, some of the things that she comes out with in the press is just I mean, when she was talking, I've got this hit list of oligarchs with a plan to, you know, expand the number of sanctions, and, you know, we'll be reviewing this list every few weeks and target their property and private jets. It's like, you're saying this in the press that you're going to do this every few weeks. That's like ringing up, you know, the police ringing up a drug dealer and telling them they're going to do a raid in 4 weeks' time, and then acting surprised when they turn up at an empty house with a phone in the microwave. It's just like, it's almost like saying, oh yeah, this is exactly what we're going to do, and we're going to give you loads of time to kind of
the door's going in, hide the whiz in the kettle.
Yeah.
It'll be at 4:23 a.m. on this day. neck half of it and hide the rest. It's basically this. It's quite right what you're saying. Let us bring some stuff in regards to the wider sort of like Tory stuff, saying as well on the Liz Truss, because some of this is startling. So, guy called Graham Lucas on Twitter said, German TV has just reported on the Tories' Russia problem. Hundreds of oligarchs with links to Putin have paid millions to get citizenship and have donated millions to the Tories. Their black money is laundered in London, where Citibank has profit. Johnson does next to nothing. And it goes on. This guy is the guy who I was referring to. Was it last week, Alice? It was when we're doing the GB News. It's Lebedev, right? And
yes,
he's the guy who's the son of a KGB agent. He currently sits in the House of Lords, and he benefited from being rich as hell and getting one of these golden visas. He's also the owner of the Independent and the Evening Standard. So it goes on. What I referred to last week was this. This was from 2018. Morning after, Boris Johnson recovers from Lebedev's exotic Italian party. Exclusive. New Prime Minister refuses to say if he abandoned security for 2018 night in Billionaire's Castle. An article by Nick Hopkins in The Independent. So, Open Democracy, who do some fantastic work. Please check out Open Democracy. They are great. More than 200 Russian millionaires bought their way into the UK with controversial golden visas in the 7 years since the government pledged to stop corrupt oligarchs exploiting the system. A little bit more from me. This is from the Financial Times. It's a little bit text heavy, but I want to get this information out there. So there seems to be a reluctance to end lucrative relationships with Kremlin-backed institutions and oligarchs. Russian ties with UK banks, law firms, public relations firms, universities, and politicians were forged with perhaps the best intentions after the fall of the Soviet Union. But in the past decade, when it's become clear what kind of regime Putin has created, too little has been done to reverse course. Unpicking such close links is hard. Even US officials are reported dismayed about the potential of Londongrad to derail Western efforts. The current Conservative government has come under scrutiny for ties to donors such as the wife of Putin's former deputy finance minister. But, bear with me, the crisis in Ukraine serves as a reckoning on many levels. For the UK, it should be a wake-up call over whom is willing to do business, whom is willing to do business with. For too long, the country has sold its city advice, education, football clubs, and real estate to the highest bidder, with few questions asked. Claiming friendly libel laws ensure journalists who do ask more searching questions can be gagged. Selling services to kleptocrats, tycoons, and princelings is dubious. Selling them to an adversary is far worse. That is in the Financial Times, which isn't known for being like the Morning Star.
No.
So what's your reaction to that, mate?
Oh, well, I mean, I think it's a bit unfair to say that, we haven't done anything. I mean, we've done quite a lot, like banning the Meerkat advert.
Oh, God, I saw that. It didn't make the cut today, but I had a screenshot of it, and I thought, I kind of get that in.
Like, yeah, so the compare the Meerkat adverts is that Alexander Orlov, who is the mascot, is like, people say, oh no, it's insensitive because he's a Russian oligarch. No, he's not.
And with fictional Russian meerkat billionaires.
He's a meerkat puppet, is what he is, and that is going to do absolutely fuck all. I think as well, I think there's so many examples we can find of just like what is just corporate nonsense or token gestures. I think that, again, one of the most maddening ones is the social media campaign for Chicken Kievs to be like respelled to Chicken Kievs of the preferred Ukrainian spelling of the city of.
Oh my God.
Of Kiev. It's like, if that is now our idea of solidarity, we are completely and utterly fucked.
Light up the Houses of Parliament blue and yellow, stick it on the Millennium Bridge, like don't do anything tangible, because when that started happening, there wasn't any real sanctions occurring. I think public pressure has led to that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's absolutely startling, and I pulled the Meerkat off. Not literally, because that would be bad, because it's like it's a puppet. That would be some weird plushophile shit. Anyway, moving on. I've went right off the deep end there. So, I mean, my take on it is Tories be Torying. We know what Tories are. We know what they're about. We've known about this stuff for a while, but recontextualized like this. Because if you remember, people who were actually speaking out about it, like Jeremy Corbyn, which like, before the last election was talking about it. People within his own party were going disgusting, disgraceful. I think was it like Prime Minister's Question Time when he was trying to like get across his distaste at this. But he's been going on about this for a long time. So in the interest of balance, here's Labour. So this is Jessica Elgott from I think the Mirror, but I might be wrong. But she's credited journalist. Starmer, speaking of Labour MPs at Parliamentary Labour Party, directly threatens the MPs who joined Stop the War declaration in recent weeks. Let me be very clear. There will be no place in the party for false equivalence between the actions of Russia and the actions of NATO, says Keir Starmer. This is an article from the BBC News on the 20th of April 2000. Should the UK have welcomed Putin? Russia's new premier made a swift visit to the UK where he met Prime Minister Tony Blair, British businessman, and attended a private audience with the Queen. Many people felt uncomfortable about Mr. Putin's trip as Russian troops continue their intense military campaign in Chechnya. Labour MP Jeremy Corbyn, in the year 2000, branded the visit premature and inappropriate, while the Secretary-General of the Muslim Council of Britain accused the government of doing business with a man who had blood on his hands. And there they are there. Putin's hairline doing better than mine currently. Also, Peter Mandelson, who's a very, very vetted in special advisor with Keir Starmer.
How many times does his name come up on this
Oh,
program?
it'll be coming up a few more. Leading Britain's business links with Russians under spotlight. Lord Mandelson has lucrative directorship of Sistema, a Moscow-based diversified holding company with close ties to the Kremlin. Now, that's from March the 26th, 2014. It goes on. Couple of things. One's from the Tory Graph, the Daily Telegraph from 2013. Lord Mandelson says Vladimir Putin taking Russia in the right direction. Also, another one, exclusive. Lord Mandelson asked Vladimir Putin to help Russian company that paid him 200 grand walkade. Labour, the current left cheek of the establishment arsehole, it would seem as into it as anybody else. I mean, I know Mandelson likes to get about on islands and yachts and things like that as well. And you cannot tell me, right?
Spicy.
It is as well, yeah. That's like, if there's any spooks listening, it's a very spice. It is actually a ginger spiced herbal tea. Yachts, islands. Right? Why on earth, right? Are they attacking Jeremy Corbyn again? And I hate to bring him up every bloody week, but I'm not the one who's attacking him and putting him in the news again. Leave him alone, man. Like he just wants peace, you know. You had at the weekend the Stop the War thing, as somebody mentioned earlier. That Starmer quote is basically the John McDonnell kind of magically disappeared from the Stop the War lineup to give a speech. Now, don't get us wrong, I've got a lot of time for John. I've actually had meetings with John about totally unconnected stuff in the past, and I think I'd rather he was there than he wasn't. But I've got to say, I am disappointed with him and the Socialist Campaign Group for buckling under the threat of having the whip removed. Now, I don't know what's been said to them privately or anything of that nature, but, you know, principles are principles, and I would like to have seen, you know, you don't have to go and speak at the thing, but you don't have to withdraw your letter. It took about an hour or 2 hours, so God knows what was said to them. Real problem within Labour. Certainly not the party of us. Certainly not the party of peace. I mean, in some respects, I actually think Boris Johnson is in a position where he wouldn't buckle under the pressure to declare a no-fly zone. Because you know what would happen if they declared a no-fly zone? Russia would test that. And that would mean NATO, i.e. us and everybody else in NATO, would have to shoot that down. Yeah. What does that mean? World War III.
Absolutely, it would.
So
absolutely.
You really want that?
And I think that's what people don't realise. And I think this is another thing that really worries me, actually, is that Putin is a very, very vain, very he's weird. He's weird, and he's got a very kind of weird whole macho thing about him. And I know we've made jokes before with the pictures of him riding shirtless on horses and stuff and things like that, and holding weapons. And now, completely to his dismay, he's basically being bested by Paddington Bear. I want to say that Zelensky, who we know as a comedian beforehand, he was the voice of Paddington Bear in the Ukraine thing. He also won the Ukrainian version of Strictly Come Dancing. So you imagine somebody with Putin's mentality, how what a spit in the face that must be. When he's because he's got such a high opinion of himself, and this thing isn't going as he expected. I think he didn't think he was, because I think he really underestimated the Ukrainian people in how, that's been his biggest mistake, because they have, kind of really fighting back with a vengeance. And this whole thing isn't going well for him, and which is good, but you kind of worry where you can see with his own advisors, with his own military and stuff, it's kind of, they're laughing at him a little bit, as well, with the whole kind of giving speeches behind glass things, but not letting anyone anywhere near him because he's terrified of catching COVID. He's starting to be seen as weak, and it's what will he do if if he does that, somebody like him, because he ain't right, let's face it.
Just want to point out there's somebody actually at my door, and obviously I'm in the middle of a live stream. I can't go and answer it, but maybe it's the busies. Who knows?
God, don't say that, man.
Let's take some comments.
I've got such bad anxiety at the minute.
I think everybody has, mate.
Yeah.
Right. So what's Laz saying? Leave the door on the snack. Never invite a vampire into your house, Laz. Imagine if they barged in now, dragged us off, black bagged us big style. Can you imagine though? It's not beyond the realms, is it? So what else we got here? More than most, BJ, Boris Johnson, this is Janina Harrison, by the way, knows how much Russian money is in London, being the former mayor, and has done nothing. I mean, I can't corroborate that, Janine. We don't know. So we don't know if it follows he was London mayor and there was more in. Would really want to point out, we want to keep this evidence-based, but your opinion is understood. So what else we got here? Roger Brotherwood, I can see Liz T loving UK people going up to fight with neo-Nazi militias in Ukraine rather than left-wing freedom fighters in Syria. I don't even know she thinks that deeply, mate. I don't know if it goes that deep. She seems to me like a bit of an empty vessel who's just like a placeholder. Like she's just there.
This is like the majority of the cabinet, the ones who aren't outright sociopathic are just vapid and useless, and they're there because they do what Boris Johnson tells them to. It's really the whole thing, and she's one of the ones that falls into that category for myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Alan Lewis has followed up his comment. The guy who was in the military.
Oh right, yeah.
So back in the 80s, we practiced and trained for nuclear and chemical warfare, even though it was the worst case scenario that would end in a third world war. The end of life as we knew it. Now, we really don't know what Putin will do if provoked by the West. That's frightening. I agree, mate. Well, I think we're all frightened. I think we all, we all don't want this to be happening, do we? It's horrific and awful and wrong, and Putin needs to get his forces out right now, quite frankly. So, Jesus, man. Joanne G on the wind. Bye-bye. I would imagine that's Mr. Coo. Cheers, mate. All the best. See you in the private Milk the Cow forum later on, hopefully. Maybe as if I smuggle my phone up my arse into the cell. So anyway, a bit of housekeeping. Please become a patron and gain instant access to Milk the Cow's private chat forum and potentially the ins and outs of my forthcoming court case. Go to patreon.com/cowdaily. Keep free speech on the level, and please share the stream, but not with the spooks. Also, please subscribe to the Cow Daily YouTube channel. Look, plurality of opinion is important, and if we don't embody that, particularly during these times, then we can't call ourselves like principled people, I'm afraid. And I personally had anxiety too about doing this show, but it is what it is. Like, all of these things are from reputable sources, like mixed with our opinions, which are based in to put a show like this together, right? It's not just a case of turn up, do an hour and go. It took me 3 or 4 hours to put all the video and everything together and the slides and whatever just today. But yourself, we've got this like signal group where we'll go back and forth like with information and research. It's like a week. You know, and then that all changes in the last couple of days because it's like a topical news program as well.
Yeah, and
so that we've just pulled stuff, don't we, and then put it in. So it's kind of like,
and I think for me as well, I think I kind of knew little bits, but I think I'm like a lot of the, I think I was like a lot of people in the UK who's kind of watching it all unfold and kind of going, what the hell is going on here? So I spent like a really long time, like kind of trying to read things and understand it and being really confused by kind of a lot of the opinion that you're seeing online, and that, kind of somebody being concerned about some of the, like the Azov battalion, for example, and kind of raising concerns about that, and then being told that because of that, you're raising concerns that you're pro-Putin. It's like we need to learn some political nuance here, otherwise we are absolutely screwed. In doing that, we could do an entire show criticizing Putin and all the terrible things that he's done.
And I think we will.
Yeah, well, I think we're gonna have. It looks like we're gonna have no choice now. The way he's progressing, and he's just, kind of freewheeling us all to hell at the moment. But also saying, we don't support those people, but we do support the Ukrainian people, like absolutely. And what's happening to them is absolutely horrifying. It really is. But we absolutely have to just have a bit of nuance when you're looking at things online. And for anybody who still thinks at the end of this program that Putin and Russia is communist, please just go and listen to the Scorpions.
In a vision of tomorrow on a stormy night. Come on, everybody. And the winds have changed. I do the whistle bit. Down in Gorky Park. Right, that's all I know. Right, anyway, who ready for a bit of more hypocrisy?
Oh, go on then.
Right, so Matt Kennard from Declassified UK, they're also in the Independent Media Association, and some of the work they're doing is absolutely, utterly tremendous. What Matt's saying in his tweet is, if the media focused on the UK-Saudi war on Yemen for one day at the same intensity as the covering Russia's war on Ukraine, the war would likely end tomorrow. Millions of children could be saved. The media is complicit. Some, Vice, Financial Times, Independent, are actually colluding with the Saudi regime. Global Citizen says UK arms sales to Saudi Arabia are prolonging war in Yemen, and that's directly from an Oxfam report. The conflict in Yemen is quite literally being fueled by the UK, according to Oxfam. That's Oxfam. We've all heard of Oxfam. They're a bit more than just charity shops looking at their wider work. Done some brilliant stuff. Also, from Reuters, you couldn't get a more solid source than this. Yemen's children starve as UN seeks billions to avoid vast man-made famine. I mean, just even seeing the picture of that kid there, that just choked us, and that came from nowhere. There's a famine in Yemen, and Matt's quite right in what he's saying. These things should be getting reported in equal amounts, and maybe as it comes a little bit back to what we saw in that media montage earlier, the kind of just this kind of racism around white faces. I don't understand how human life isn't seen in equality. Human life's sacred, man. Sorry, I'm a bit cut up by saying I need out to deal with kids, and I'm like, kids are animals.
Absolutely, yeah.
I've seen some horrific, you remember in the 1980s, Live Aid and all that, and you would see the Ethiopian children, and Blue Peter was doing stuff about it, and there was the Live Aid, obviously Live Aid and all fundraising, and this is terrible and whatever. Well, that's happening in Yemen, and they're bombing farmland. And it's not getting reported, and we'll probably lose social media for this. I don't know. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But I'm gonna say it. I don't fucking care anymore. X us out, do what you want. Fucking black bag where there's nothing to do about it. Just kids are dying, and this all needs to change. So I just want people to be really consistent in all of this. I want to see consistency. And just this week, this occurred. Airstrikes in the last 48 hours. And just for the interest of clarity, that was earlier on this week. This meme was produced. Immortal Technique, the rapper, actually posted this. And it's got Ukraine, dozens of Russian airstrikes in Ukraine. Horrific. Syria, Israeli airstrike in Damascus. Horrible. Yemen, 37 Saudi airstrikes in Yemen. Also, US airstrike in Somalia, as you alluded to earlier in the show, Alice, because, believe it or not, if you're just tuning in now, Alice is of Somali extraction.
which looks like some kind of like Rachel Dolezal joke. To be fair, except even worse, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, but obviously I'm mixed, like unsurprisingly. But yeah, looking at all of that, and it's what you realize it is that world leaders is that they, just imagine that, like, I feel like where we're at now is that they've been, it's like a giant game of Risk where everybody playing has been doing cocaine for 300 years and now somebody's about to flip the board. And, because we always talk, whenever you see like, us, and when I say us, I don't just mean, me and you, I mean like probably every other person we know, certainly every person watching this, you ask them, is war a good thing? Do you like war? People are going to say no. Like, war is horrifying. It's scary. It's, it's criminal. It's all of those things. But I think what we forget is they have people get richer every time there's a war on. A very, very tiny percent of people. But that's what it is. And when they're not exchanging money like with each other, they pay for it in our blood.
Indeed.
And that has been going on like for a really long time. And it's, you'd like to think that now we're at a stage of moving away from that, but we're not. And by myself, war bad, don't want war. I'm by no means a pacifist, and that's in no way a condemnation of the people who are saying, no, I'm going to go and fight, because they're terrified, and they've had their cities invaded and everything like that. I totally get it. But that fact that we're still here, and yet at some point the people who caused all of this will shake hands. Everything will be okay. They'll make some kind of shitty agreements between themselves, and then another pack of bastards will take over, and they'll all start again playing their never-ending game of Risk.
Indeed,
is what they do.
Indeed, that's what they do. They've ruled for thousands of years, and it's been passed down. And I mean, I don't know if you ever saw Who Do You Think You Are when Boris Johnson was on it. That kind of genealogy program. He was on it a few years ago, and he's like one shag away from most of the royal houses of Europe, or a few shags away from it. And it's absolutely nuts. And also, he was, the Bullingdon Club picture of him and David Cameron, also the current CEO of Boots and other people,
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, man. And like these people like think they're born to rule. As I've said before, Boris Johnson's ambition as a kid at Eton was to be world king. Whether he's got the actual competency to do any of this is obviously, it speaks for itself. But
see, I'm surprised they didn't trace his DNA back to the fungal spore that caused the Irish potato famine. But,
well, I mean, when actually, I mean, some would say it isn't the famine. I mean, I'm actually working on a bit of this stuff at the minute.
Yeah,
and,
no, absolutely.
If you think this one's spicy, wait till I hit you with this. What happened in Ireland?
Well, yeah, exactly. We do know what happened. It was a little bit more than a fungal spore, wasn't it? But again, and anybody who, is, kind of watching this program and hear us talk about that, kind of British people maybe kind of have a little think about your stance on the British occupation of like, well, I was just going to say Ireland, but it's just, I think we've kind of claimed ownership of just about every country in the world at some point in history, haven't we?
Indeed.
And really, is that like really what we should be being a bit stricter about and saying, you don't just get to go, that is mine.
Hypocrisy is rank. It's rank. Let's take some comments, see what the community is saying. Betty Whitey, what she's saying? It's the year of the water tiger. Look back at the last time it was this 60 years ago, and you won't be surprised at what's happening. Cool, dude.
I have no idea what that is, but I'll have a look.
Same. I don't, but I will after this because I'm looking for all things. Janine Harrison is saying Putin is a narcissist, psychopath, and Machiavellian. Fully agree. And also, Putin went nuts when an LGBTQ artist produced this. So in the interest of balance, up yours, Vladimir. Stick it. He went Bismarck about it, to be honest. Absolutely wasn't having it. But there it is right there. And for audio listeners, it's an LGBTQ flag, and somebody's done them like a kipper, like make them look very effeminate, which obviously for somebody who tries to be that person on the horse, he didn't like it. And this just goes to show the narcissism, as Janine points out, the just basic ego of these people. Like, who do they think they are? 2 seconds, my dog's tablet alarm's going off again. Doom, boom, doom, doom. You heard the bongos. Could you hear that? It's for those who just tune in for the first time. This is like, my dog's got epilepsy, so I give him tablets at 8 o'clock in the morning and 8 o'clock at night. But that's by the by. Janine also goes on to say, I don't think it's just race, it's also socioeconomic culture, and the fact it's in Europe, which is closer to the UK. I guess Liz Truss expects the working class to go and fight in the Ukraine. Great point. There's classism throughout some of that media montage that were put together as well. Like, oh, well, these are just prosperous middle class people. These aren't the usual people who should be feeling like this. And, you know, they're white. And it sticks in their mouth, but they're saying the things that they think. And, I mean, it's just bad crack, isn't it?
Yeah, saying the quiet parts out loud again. You know, and very, very little about the, you know, kind of, if you look at the hashtag Africans in Ukraine, and, you know, the trouble that people, you know, with African, you know, from Africa who've been studying in the Ukraine or working there, about the massive problems they are having getting out.
No doubt about it.
They keep getting shoved back to the back of the queue.
Go on from Slaz, yeah. £300 fine and 15 days in jail for that pic, referencing the Putin pic. Cool. In Russia, few.
Was that the artist? I thought that was like a Facebook ban. Is that the artist got that? Is that what that means?
I don't know. Slaz might be able to clarify that for. Well, I'll just take one more comment before we go on to positive news, because God knows we need it. So Robert Grady saying climate issues are imperative, but political discourse has been all about war. I fully agree. Recently did a podcast which will be coming out very soon with an ecologist, and yeah, I mean, it's not pretty what we're facing with the climate crisis as well. I mean, it's on all levels, I believe. So, positive news. I mean, I'll start with something that's kind of moderate news, but it's from just a little bit of an update on the policing bill and what's been going on. So, Netpal, the Venerable, doing some great works, which the Network for Police Monitoring. This was just from today. As expected, the government has used its large majority in the Commons to reject the substantive House of Lords amendments to the policing bill. Do you remember we did that one? Like on the earlier podcast. On protest. Peers may try to have another go, but it seems likely the government isn't interested in listening. So Netpal go on to say, the government is aiming primarily at criminalising protests, adopting direct action and civil disobedience tactics, aka effective protests, and those noisily challenging state and corporate power. Policing in Britain is far less interested in marches causing minimal disruption. Even if the bill passes, it is possible to keep resisting the expansion of police powers by offering genuine solidarity to campaigners, most likely to face targeting, and not helping to feed into the constant media narrative about good and bad protesters. And that's really in line with a lot of what we're talking about. Things are nuanced. It's not all about goodies and baddies. As long as police maintain the pretense they act with public consent and claim to respect human rights, they're vulnerable to our resistance, politically, legally, and practically. We can force senior officers to think twice about using the new powers they lobbied so hard for. A little bit of hope there.
Absolutely. I hadn't actually heard that, so that's really good news. I didn't actually know that. So yeah, good. Excellent.
Thanks, Netpal. So it's time for this, and like this is something that like is just a lovely palate cleanser. And for people who've watched before or listened, you've seen it or heard it before, but we've got to bring back the one and only Dino Kid.
Hey, you slip. I won't fall. Maybe I will. That's okay, 'cause we all fall. Have fun, Dad. Well, let's go down this big old hill. Wee woo! Wee woo! Wee woo! Woo!
Hey, what kind of dinosaur are you?
Tyrannosaurus! I'm a Stegosaurus.
I love that kid. And when I was researching all of this stuff we've been talking about today, I was just like, I'm going to watch Dino Kid. And then I thought, I'm going to upload Dino Kid to StreamYard again because sometimes we need Dino Kid. And sometimes when things are bad and times are hard, I'm going to just pull Dino Kid out the back pocket and play with some Dino Kid. Because I find it absolutely impossible to be unhappy or scared when I'm watching the absolute unfiltered joy that is Dino Kid mic'd up on a snowboard in a dinosaur suit going down this big old hill. It's the Dino Kid. Loving me some Dino Kid. You love the Dino Kid, Alice?
Yeah, I do love the Dino Kid. I'm still very envious of his suit. I think I definitely need one in my size. I can't snowboard for shit, I've got to say, but I don't care. I'll still love the suit.
That's the one. Absolutely. What I want to say is thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. There's a lot more of you this week actually than there's ever been. Please do stop by again. Also, if you want to catch these things and share them with people, you'll find it immediately on the YouTube channel. It'll be there. Please go and leave a nice comment, leave a thumbs up and all that good stuff because it really does help. You know what I mean? Also, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So Spotify for your Android heads and Apple Podcasts, you can find the audio there. Also, the whole back catalogue, I think, is on there as well. Also, please become a patron. That's patreon.com/cowdaily. Not only can you get access to the private chat forum, you can help me do this more than once a week because there's just so much that doesn't make the cut. And what we want to do is employ people on union wages, editors, all of that, because, obviously it takes loads of time. And it would be a big help. I think these type of things are needed. And we will be doing like a feature on independent media, people who aren't just us, other members of the Independent Media Association. We're looking to bring some people on in the future as well. I've got a few things lined up. Some really positive stuff like the UBI Lab Wales, who have the people who campaigned and successfully got the Welsh government to do the UBI experiment, universal basic income for people leaving care, which is a brilliant thing. They're going to get £1,600 a month, so another positive thing, and they've kindly agreed to hop on the show. Also, thanks to everybody for putting it back in the top 10 on in the podcast charts. It was a welcome and much earlier than expected. Not that we thought we definitely were going to do it, but certainly if we're going to do it, I didn't think it was going to be in the first week. So thanks very much. You've really heartened with there and just all the support that you're giving. We're not just on this show, but just personally too. We're all in this together. And this isn't the Cameron or all of these other political people. We are genuinely, as a community, all in this together. And I'm finding a lot of solace. And I hope you are on the things that we're putting out there as well now that we've decided to get active again. Also yourself, Alice, as ever. So happy you're here. And I know this was a hard one for both of us to put together. We're really going through it, aren't we? And it's hard to put yourself out there in a world of shit.
Yeah, and I think, and it's because it's obviously we do this and we do the live stream every Tuesday because we want to, we want to be able to kind of talk about these things. But it's, I talk about, I don't consider, obviously we've been talking about Russia and Ukraine, and I'm not doing it from the stance of a war correspondent or a war journalist. It's like a human being watching the news kind of in absolute horror and trying to make sense of it with other people as well, and really trying not to, as I say, fall into those traps, but that we've seen about, I've already talked about the memification of war and things like that. It's different if you're the ones on the front line, and understand that, that psychological aspect. But it's, kind of people in the West making Zelensky memes of him dressed as, I think it was Captain America, bizarrely.
Yeah, it was Captain Ukraine. It was just like, oh God.
Yeah, it's just like, because this is happening to real people on the ground, and
Indeed.
and they're terrified, and we have to kind of try and make sense of it. We have to try and think of ways, even the tiny ways that we can resist things, because that's what we've always had to do in all of these wars. It's often been, the heroic acts have been the tiny acts of, resistance or sabotage by ordinary people, sometimes in very extraordinarily oppressive circumstances.
Beautiful words, mate, indeed. And I think you captured the sentiment of how a lot of we're feeling right now. Almost Orko-esque, some would say.
I think I know where we're going with this.
That's a seamless link. But before we do, I want to just take some comments from the community before we play out. What we've got, Snowy Adams. Great informative chat, folks. Thanks so much. Love that, Snowy, and really pleased to see you here, mate. Really happy to see you along for the ride with her. Steve Slaz, my pasta bake is waiting for me. Well, you'd better bloody well go and eat it, Slaz.
Sounds marvellous.
Oh, hold on, I've just scrolled back. He's got something else. The bill, which must be signed by Putin to become law, also says foreigners can be detained for up to 15 days and deported, as well as fined up to 100,000 rubles for breaking the law. To be honest, 100,000 rubles is about 5 pence. So in the spirit of Sting in Quadrophenia, I'll pay now if you don't fucking mind, Vladimir. The worst Cockney accent ever. And I ain't going to Russia either, so fuck you. Get this back up you. Fucking get it. Woo. Eat it. Also, Joanne, private chat form is cool, folks. Totally, utterly. Socialist think tank, our friends, Socialist think tank. They're going to be on at 9 o'clock tonight, actually. So, with Hugh Topple of the Canary and other things, he's going to be guest presenting on the show. So, get across to Socialist Think Tank at 9 p.m. as well if you want more of this.
Very
good people. Really got loads of time for them. Yeah. So, in the spirit of Orko and, of course, Snarf from Thundercat, they always pull together something at the end to leave you on a good one. So, what we're going to do with that is nobody more Orko-esque, I feel, Alice, than the venerable Noam Chomsky. I'm going to just play out with a short. That is the most tenuous thing ever. Chomsky's never been compared to Orko whatsoever. But you have. I tried to, it was a beautiful Orko monologue you gave us there. Here's Chomsky, not long after 9/11. And I think it ties together a lot of the themes about what we've been talking about tonight. And for those who don't know, Chomsky's one of the foremost political thinkers of the last 100 years, in my view. Also doing some really amazing work in linguistics, and basically the father of it in a lot of ways. He's talking about the hypocrisy of it all. And not that we're ever trying to compare ourselves to Chomsky, and we never would. But I think I saw this earlier, and I think it ties together quite a bit of what we're trying to say. Just does it better, I think, because he's known bloody Chomsky. Cheers, everybody. Alice, love you. You're a great person, and you're a great friend, and you're a really brave individual. And seriously, you are. I mean, people don't know what goes on in our lives before we turn this thing on.
No.
And I've got all the respect in the world for you, mate. Thank you so much for being here and doing this. Heart, hands, and that. Jesus Christ. Actually, fuck everything I've just said. Yeah, go fuck yourself. Come with that hard hand. Carry on. Who do you think you're, like Gareth Bale? Fuck off.
I got banned on Facebook for sending heart hands to Lady Cowstrogen, actually.
You did,
well, that's because the person doing the heart hands was Stalin, which was like.
It just shows you how unusable social media is. Come to the Milky Cow private forum. It's bloody brilliant. Patron.com/Cow Daily. Get yourselves amongst it. Anyway, yes, Orko. I mean, Noam Chomsky.
If we're rational,
a lot of irrational people out there.
I can't help that. if we're rational, we will recognize that the United States, Britain, France, and I can go down a long list, have a terrible record of atrocities, and that does not justify violent acts against them.
But you seem to see this moral equivalence the whole
There's
time
no
between
moral-
bin Laden and Bush. don't you?
Moral equivalence is a term of propaganda that was invented to try to prevent us from looking at what the acts for which we are responsible.
You say there
I
are plenty of
reject
bin
that
Ladens on both sides.
Pardon?
You say there are plenty of bin Ladens.
Oh, there are bin Ladens all over the world.
On both sides.
There are
That's
plenty
a
of
moral equivalence.
No, it's
That's
not.
a polemic.
It's not moral equivalence. There is no such notion. There are many different dimensions and criteria. For example, there's no moral equivalence between the bombing of the World Trade Center and the destruction of Nicaragua, or of El Salvador, of Guatemala. The latter were far worse by any criterion. So there's no moral equivalence. Furthermore, they were done for different reasons, and they were done in different ways. There's all sorts of dimensions.
But why, when the U.S. is considering what to do about this, do you always go back to past?
Not past,
crimes.
Present.
Proceed. Well,
Present.
you mentioned Nicaragua.
I mentioned that because it's uncontroversial, since there's a World Court and Security Council resolution. But I can take you to cases, since it's uncontroversial, that's a good example. I mentioned these cases.
Are you kicking the U.S. when it's down?
No, I'm asking that we accept the definition of hypocrite given in the Gospels. I think that's correct. The hypocrite is the person who refuses to apply to himself the standards he applies to others. I don't think we should be hypocrites.
To what aim do you do this? To what aim do you wish to point this out?
Because I think we should try to rise to the level of minimal moral integrity. Once we can rise to the level of minimal moral integrity, then we can discuss these issues seriously. If we can't even rise to that level, there's any point just talking. Minimal moral integrity requires that if we think something is wrong when they do it, it's wrong when we do it.
Thanks, Lionel. There's Oko there with a message for our nation's children. Chomsky in it. Anyway, cheers, everybody. Thanks for being here. All the very bloody best to you. I'm going to now go off and see whether the busies are sitting in my sitting room, like poking the fire. There might be. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? Because I'm still in Shetland and nobody knows us here, so I'm really rather perturbed as to who that was. Anyway, bye-bye. Cheers, Alice.
Bye.
Bye.